discouraged. We possess a spirit that cannot be conquered.
Abigail Adams, wife of American leader John Adams, aptly expressed how the Declaration of Independence was more than just a document. It was a declaration of ideas. As far back as 1200 A.D., people in England began to question the power of the king. King John was forced by the ruling class of England, known as the barons, to approve the Magna Carta at Runnymede in the year 1215. This important British historical document established the tradition that a certain people of equal rank were able to limit the absolute power of the king. This event was the root of English common law. The Declaration of Rights, commonly called the English Bill of Rights, was another important British document that limited a king's tyranny. In England, the assembly of people who made the laws was known as Parliament. Parliament now had more power to make laws. These were some of the rights they established by law. The right to worship, the right of free speech, the right to petition the king, and the right of no taxation without representation. The Age of Reason was a time in history when many important thinkers in Europe accepted the idea that people could solve their religious, social, political, and economic problems through reason and science. This way of thinking convinced people that they could live a better life by putting their own ideas into action and to question the ideas of those in authority. During the 1700s, many of the people in the American colonies found life difficult, especially when dealing with the unfair laws of the British government. For example, in 1765, England enacted the Stamp Act on the American colonies. This act forced those citizens of the colonies to pay a tax on newspapers, almanacs, playing cards, and liquor licenses. England was attempting to raise money to pay for the cost of the French and Indian War, an expensive war that was fought to protect the British American colonies from invaders. The British government felt it was only right the colonies should pay for a war to protect themselves. However, many people in the colonies felt the tax was unjust. This tax act united the 13 colonies against England for the first time. Patrick Henry, a well-known lawyer from Virginia, expressed the feelings of many colonists when he said,
"The distinctions between Virginians, Pennsylvanians, New Yorkers, and New Englanders are no more. I am not a Virginian, but an American."
Several representatives from each colony in America, except Georgia, gathered together at Carpenter's Hall in Philadelphia. This assembly of the colony's socially, economically, and politically important men was called the Continental Congress. Their purpose was to protest the English government's unfair laws and taxes on the colonies. Even though the king canceled some of the English tax on the colonies, he continued to come up with new ways to tax the colonies. Without representation in Parliament, many citizens of the colonies protested these and other government acts which they considered to be unfair and declared their right to be independent from England.
The battle is not to the strong alone, it is to the vigilant, the active, the brave. I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death.
Eventually, feelings of hostility led to a citizen army revolt at Lexington, Massachusetts. There, on April 19, 1775, British troops and armed colonists, known as Patriots, clashed. The result was that 8 Patriots, supporters of American independence, lay dead on the village green. Common Sense, written by the reactionary Thomas Paine, urged the people of the colonies to know that
the blood of the slain and the weeping voice of nature cries, "'Tis time to separate."
Radically, Paine further announced,
"A government of our own is our natural right. Oh, ye that..."
With these passionate words from Common Sense in their minds, the Continental Congress met again at the Pennsylvania State House, this time in strict secrecy and under penalty of death, because any move towards separation from the mother country was considered an act of treason. King George III issued a proclamation stating the penalty for any colonist who even talked about independence from England.
Your heads will be cut off and your bodies will be divided into 4 quarters. These parts will then be taken away for the king's just disposal. And may the Lord Almighty God have mercy upon your souls.
Regardless of the danger, the delegates decided how they would settle their differences between the American colonies and the King of England, George III. To separate was a difficult and dangerous decision.
In the end, we will survive, and in our survival, we will triumph. Independence now. Independence forever. Hear, hear. I second that motion.
Gentlemen, please! We must pause. We must reflect. A declaration of independence at this time would mean nothing less than a declared war. No, he knows what he's talking about. He knows what he's talking about.
Order!
As British subjects, it is neither our desire nor is it our interest to separate from England.
What more can we do, Mr. Dickinson? Shall we try argument? We have demonstrated. We have petitioned. We have prostrated ourselves before the throne. And we have been spurned with contempt.
Mr. Adams, at this moment, General Washington is in command of 9,000 men. That, sir, is the entire Continental Army. Will this so-called army of poorly trained and underfed men be able to stand and fight an estimated 25,000 highly skilled British and Hessian soldiers? I think not.
Sink or swim, live or die, survive or perish. I am for this declaration. It is my living sentiment, independent. It will be my dying sentiment.
Eventually, the congressional delegates chose a young Virginian lawyer named Thomas Jefferson to write the Declaration of their separation from England. In the Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson expressed their principles and beliefs and explained to the world their right to become a new nation.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their creators with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
All men. At this time, the word men referred to only those free males who own property. All men are created equal. The Continental Congress wanted the world to know that they believed in a higher law, higher than the king's, and that the king and his people were equal under this law. Endowed by their Creator. Creator was known at that time as nature's God. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are the rights with which all people are born, and these rights should never be taken away.
That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed.
Just powers is the authority given to the government. Consent of the governed is the permission given to the government by the people to protect their rights.
That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government.
To institute a new government meant that the colonies were using their right to free themselves from England and were now to be known as a new government and a new nation, the United States of America. Overall, these principles of the Declaration of Independence were founded upon the ideal that all men should be free. Unfortunately, this ideal was not true for all men, such as slaves, blacks held in bondage. At that time, slavery was thought by many to be an economic necessity. For many black Americans, the struggle for freedom did not end with the Declaration of Independence or the Revolutionary War. They would have to wait almost another 100 years for their lawful freedom. After a few days of writing the text, Thomas Jefferson and his committee presented the Declaration of Independence to the Congress.
The committee will now present the Declaration for approval.
After the Continental Congress reviewed, revised, and approved the Declaration of Independence, this document of new ideas was signed by the members of Congress.
I was determined to see how they all looked as they signed what might be their death warrant. I placed myself beside the secretary, and I eyed each of them closely as they affixed their name to the document. Undaunted resolution was displayed on every countenance.
As they signed, they were willing to lose their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. On July 4th, 1776, the original 13 colonies were reborn as the free and independent United States of America. The Declaration of Independence proclaimed to all the world the rise of a new nation and the dawn of a new age of freedom.
If a nation expects to be ignorant and free, it expects what never was and never will be.
Please answer the following questions. 1. What is the Declaration of Independence? 2. Who wrote the Declaration of Independence? 3. According to the Declaration of Independence, people are born with 3 basic rights. Name these rights. 4. What were the signers of the Declaration of Independence willing to lose by declaring their independence from England? 5. On what date were the 13 colonies reborn as the free and independent United States of America? 6. Even after the Declaration of Independence was signed, Which American people were refused their freedom? Seven. When do people have the right to institute new government? True or false? 8. The enactment of the Stamp Act was one event that united the 13 American colonies against England. 9. The decision to separate from England was quickly and easily made by the members of the Continental Congress. 10. All men are created equal is a belief about how a king and his people are equal under the law.